Hi guys, welcome to Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a personal favourite of mine, the Owen Mark I bayonet for the Owen machine carbine, also known as the Owen submachine gun. This bayonet will also fit to the No. 1 Mark III rifle. Now these bayonets were first made in World War II by Orange Arsenal, and I'll go through it very quickly actually. So this is a World War II one made in 1944. Production started in... for this model, November of 1944, and all the metal components were made at Orange Arsenal, so it's the blade, the pommel, the crossguard, and all the metal parts in the scabbard. The leather on the scabbard here was made by the Mangrovite Belting Company, and that was supplied to Orange, and that was one of their feeder factories, one of their feeder companies, and the wooden handle comes from Slazenger, also in Sydney. And the second one here I've got is actually a Korean War manufactured one. And manufacturing moved back to Lithgow. So at the end of World War II, manufacturing stopped altogether. And then in 1952, they started up and they made them for, I think, about 3 years. I think it's 1955 they started. They haven't found a definitive end date. This is a 1953 model. But the history of the development of the Owen gun bayonet is pretty interesting, I think. So in 1942, Japan entered the war, and as a result, Australia started developing submachine guns, special carbines, and special purpose bayonets. So Lysats at Port Kembla, they were the company that made the Owen machine carbine. In 1942, they actually made a prototype bayonet for the Owen gun. I've got a photo here in one of the books I've got, so I'll bring it in. This book is Ian Scannington and Robert Richardson, British and Commonwealth Bayonets. Sorry, I was reading it for myself there. Put it in front of the camera. Fantastic reference book for bayonets for British and Commonwealth. Sorry, a bit difficult with the tripod, but that's it there in the top of the picture. So it's a socket bayonet with a metallic tube, wooden handle, and a simple blade. 200 of those were made for trials. They weren't adopted, and they were all sent back to Port Kembla for destruction. Only a handful survived. I'm aware of 2 in museums and 2 in private hands. One of the ones in, the ones in museums is one in the Australian War Memorial, one in the Infantry Museum at Lone Pine Barracks. And the 2 I know of that are in private hands, there could be more. The last one sold for $7,500 Australian dollars. I desperately want to get my hands on one. Don't think it's going to happen. But maybe I'll try the War Memorial and the Infantry Museum, see if they'll let me do a video later on. Anyway, back to the development of these bayonets here. So, in 1944, Australia started a trial with lightened and shortened SMLE rifles and shortened P1907 bayonets, which is a standard bayonet for the SMLE. And those bayonets were essentially exactly this. They were cut down to 10 inches, very tight scabbard, with a 5-inch fuller. Other than that, they're a standard P1907, nothing special. That trial was unsuccessful. Those shortened and lightened rifles were not adopted. However, in October of 1944, or late 1944, bayonet mounts were added to existing Owen submachine guns, Owen machine carbines, and they started manufacturing bayonets for them. So in October 44, they started cutting down P1907 bayonets made in Orange Arsenal in that month, so they will all have a 1044 stamp on them. And those were specifically cut down to 8 inches for the Owen gun, and they were the Owen Model 11 bayonet. I don't have one here. They're quite difficult to find and very expensive if you can find one. Maybe one day I'll make a video. Whenever you find a cut down P1907 online, there's always someone saying it's a Model 11. But unless it's made in October 1944 and it's got the right shaped blade profile, which is clearly outlined in a number of books and online, it's not the case. So if you see something like this here, this is just a cut down Orange Arsenal P1907. This is a June 43, so it's clearly not a Model 1-1 because the blade profile is too steep a cut, wrong year and date of manufacture. Anyway, back to these again. Sorry to get sidetracked. So the Model 1 started manufacture in November of 1944, and that's exactly what I have for you here. This one here, they had manufacture November 1944. I'll go over the markings in just a minute. Production stopped in 1945. Started again at Lithgow, the small arms factory. They made a small amount. Total number of production, I think, was 19,000 across both batches, or all three batches with the Model 1-1. In terms of the bayonet itself, as I previously said, it's identical to a P1907 from the Ricasso down. Then the blade is 10 inches with a 5-inch fuller. And it has its own special short scabbard. These scabbards are very, very cheap and very, very common. It's theorised they made a lot more of the scabbards than the bayonets, and they've just flooded the market. Like, you can pick them up on eBay, $20. People are buying crate loads of these things, and they can't sell them in mint condition for $20. This is the one that actually came with this bayonet here, and the collector who loaned me this also has a near mint condition matching 1944 scabbard that he got for $20. And I've done the same thing with my Korean War one here. Mine came with a non-matching, really rough scabbard, and I spent $23, and I got a near mint condition 1953 matching scabbard, which is absolutely fantastic for me. Now we'll dive into the markings. The markings are on the World War II vintage Owens, identical to the P1907s for the Orange Arsenals. So on the one side, let me just stand up and see if I can get this to focus for the camera. So at the top we've got MA under that 1907, under that 1. That is the pattern mark as per normal Lithgow P1901s, 1907, sorry. Under that, they had manufacture, so 1144, November 1944. On the reverse, we've got a government acceptance mark at the top, which is the broad arrow. The X, bottom left, is the mark that's passed the bend test, and then OA for Orange Arsenal, which is the place of manufacture. On the scabbard, we have Orange Arsenal marked on the metallic pieces manufactured at Orange, so OA and OA again. Then on the reverse, we have Mangrovite 44. So Mangrovite's, as I said, the company that manufactured and provided the leather for the scabbards. And then over here we have a broad arrow with a BN. That is the inspector's mark for the scabbard. I don't have a list of who the individual inspectors were for the scabbards, but I'm sure there's one floating around somewhere. Now, the Korean War vintage, 1953, the markings are completely different. This one is in really, really rough conditions, probably seen a lot of use in Korea, Malaya, Vietnam. These had a long service life, not to mention it's probably flogged in training here in Australia. So on the one side, on the Ricasso again, on the left we have an O, broad arrow over a 1. That is the inspector's mark who inspected this. And the O stands for Orange Arsenal. So that would have been an inspector who carried his stamp over from when he worked at Orange Arsenal back to Lithgow, because this was produced at Lithgow. Then we have the broad arrow for the government acceptance mark, and then a 5-3 for year of manufacture. On the reverse, the markings are a bit weird, and I've seen a bit of variation in how these are marked. So I've seen 1952s that only have an MA and then nothing, or just the X, the bend test. But at the top, we've got the bend test on the left, then an MA 53, or an MA over 53. I've been told this could be a pattern number, or it could just be manufactured in 53 at Lithgow. It's not too clear. And then down the bottom, we've got electro-penciled 8, or S, it's not clear. Another X, which I don't know, maybe this is a leftover blade, an X in 53, so maybe this blade was marked twice for some reason, I don't know. I've had someone email Ian Scanton, the the author of the book I just flashed before, but I haven't heard a response, so we don't know what's going on with that little S or 8 there. I have no idea what that means. And there's no other markings on the pommel. Sorry, I forgot to say before, all of these have markings on the grip. It should say Slaz 44, Slazenger 44, made in 44. Very, very faint on that side, but this side's a bit clearer. There you go, Slaz 44. And occasionally you come across one of these with Australia stamped in the handle. That means it's been sold to surplus in America, and that's their importation mark because they have to stamp what country it's from. I'm not a huge fan of them doing that. So this one here, it would have had Slaz 53 marked on the grips, but the grips are absolutely smashed. In the right light, I have been able to make out 2 of the Zs on one of the sides, but that's the only marking I've been able to make out. In terms of the frog, it's just a standard P37 frog. It's got an interesting belt hanger attachment there. I've been told this is an Australian one, and it is correct, but it's in very rough condition. Now, these are in service from 1944 all the way through until the Owen submachine gun was replaced with the F1 submachine gun, which was like in the 70s or 80s after Vietnam. So these saw a lot of use in World War II in the Pacific. In Korea, these were actually used on the short magazine Lienfeld, the number 1 Mark III rifle. They were a shorter, handier bayonet, and they were preferred over the long sabers of the B1907. Then they were used again in the Malayan emergency, used again in Vietnam with the Owen machine carbine, and absolutely flogged here in Australia in training as well. They hit the surplus market. They sold up pretty quick because they're a very handy little knife, great pig sticker. Because there weren't too many of them made in the first place, and they were pretty popular, there's not too many left on the collector's market, so they do have a bit of a premium when selling. A bit costly. They can cost up to $500 sometimes, Australian. I got pretty lucky, got this for $350 in the condition it's in, and the collector who provided me with this one to have a look at, he spent a bit of money because this one is in absolutely pristine condition. Like, that blade is just beautiful. Okay guys, well I've thoroughly enjoyed talking about this because it's probably my favourite bayonet. If I've missed anything or made any mistakes, please feel free to let me know. Other than that guys, thanks for watching and have a good day.